What's up, guys? My name's Hunter Miller. I'm the internal parts manager here for I-69 Motorsports, and this is my 2005 Yamaha YZ250. Okay, starting off up here at the top, we'll just work our way down. I'm running ODI Emig Pro hand grips. They're a lock-on type grip, so there's no gluing, anything like that. You slide it onto the handlebar. There's a clamp right here that you lock them down. On the throttle side, you slide the throttle tube on. It's actually the grip and the throttle tube all in one. You take your throttle assembly apart, and there's these different little cams that you can put in there. They'll work for pretty much any motorcycle that you have. Let's see, moving on, I've got Cycra Rebound Handguards. It's kind of dual purpose. They're more of a roost guard than anything, but they do work exceptionally well off-road if you're riding woods, enduro, cross-country, something like that. So if you lay the bike over, they will fold out so they don't break off. Same thing with my levers. They're aftermarket lever. They fold out on the brake side. On the clutch side, I'm using a Works Connection clutch lever and perch assembly, so it has on-the-fly adjustment. If your clutch starts to fade, your cable stretches, anything like that, it's something super easy to adjust. The really cool feature about these is the clutch lever itself has a needle bearing pressed into the pivot, so it's a lot smoother action when you pull the clutch lever in. I'm using Pro Taper Windham RM mid bars. They're a little bit taller on the rise than your traditional handlebar, and for me, when I'm standing up on the bike in the air, it gives me a little bit more leverage, a little more control over the bike. It's just what's comfortable for me. I have the Polisport Restyle plastic kit on the bike. It is front fender, rear fender number plates, airbox, and radiator shrouds. It's just updating the bike to the newer style of the Yamaha. Let's see. DeCal Works hooked me up with the graphics on this bike. It's one of their custom kits. You can change the color, the background. You can lay out all of your sponsor logos however you want them, whoever you want. I'm running the Cycra Stadium Plate. This is the 4-stroke stadium plate. If you order a Cycra stadium plate for a 2-stroke, it won't have the same cut as this. I wanted the one with the lower section that attaches to the forks. This one is for a 2007 YZ250F. Also on the bike, right after I got it, I had some internal failure in the forks, and it ruined the factory forks. So I bought a set of the newer style SSS KYB forks from a newer 4-stroke Yamaha. They bolt right up as long as you have the clamps. So I put the clamps and the forks on this bike. Everything internal in the fork was rebuilt using Technical Touch parts from KYB and Racetech parts. So it has the Racetech gold valves and Racetech springs in there. It's sprung for my weight. The front brakes are stock, but I'm using a Galfer steel braided line. Less likely for it to swell, less likely for brake fade. I have Moose Racing brake rotors, front and rear on the bike. They're the factory size. They're just a different color and they're waved. It is the factory wheels that are on the bike. It's the Excel Takasago wheels that comes with the 2005. But I unlaced them, had them powder coated black, and then relaced them with a set of Moose Racing stainless steel spokes, front and rear. I have Works Connection frame guards and radiator braces on the bike. It's just something to help protect the frame in the event that you get hit hard or you lay the bike over. It keeps you from getting a lot of abnormal wear on your frame from your boots. Also the radiator braces, if you lay the bike over, someone hits you, it just makes them more rigid. Less likely for radiator damage. So I'm using firepower chain and JT sprockets front and rear. Now the gearing on this bike is a little bit different. I have a 14-tooth front sprocket and a 53-tooth rear sprocket. So the idea behind that is with this sprocket setup, what happens is on a traditional bike with 13 on the front or a 51-50 on the rear, something like that. So what happens is you actually get load on the chain from here on the swing arm. And what happens is it will pull on the bike and it will put your chassis in a bind. So with a 1453, it raises the chain angle up, it puts it in a straighter line, and it relaxes the chassis of the bike, lets your suspension work a little bit better. It may not work on your particular bike, you may check and see. Sometimes you have space limitations in here between the case and the sprocket. So you may want to look at that and see. But for my bike, it works pretty well. And on pretty much any of the Yamahas, it works really well. Moving around to this side of the bike. On both sides, I have the Boysen engine covers, the clutch cover, and the ignition cover on this bike. It's just a dress-up part, magnesium. Just more of a bling part than anything, but it's a little more resilient to wear. I have the GYTR by FMF exhaust pipe on here. Now, the GYTR stands for Genuine Yamaha Technology Racing. It's just Yamaha's aftermarket in-house program. It is a FMF fatty exhaust. The silencer is also FMF GYTR silencer, but it's the FMF PowerCore 2 silencer. This exhaust setup really helped the bike in the mid to top power a little bit, but it's also a little bit more mellow than the stock pipe, but it did wake the bike up quite a bit. I have Moose Racing, or it's Hammerhead by Moose Racing brake pedal. Really cool feature about this brake pedal itself is you can take the tip and adjust it. You can move it in or out. I have mine set out as far as I can possibly get it. I have really big feet, so when I stand up, I'm prone to stepping on the brake pedal. And you really don't want to do that if you're on a track or coming over a jump, something like that. It could be bad. I'm using a Hammerhead Pro Brake return spring. So this, what this does is your spring, your return spring, actually rests on the master cylinder itself, and then you have this adjustment nut here. What it will do is, when you press on the pedal, the spring here will actually pull the piston back out of the master cylinder, so there's less chance of a failure there. And it's also a really cool dress-up part for the bike itself. Moving back around to the other side of the bike, I have a Fathead Racing cylinder head, and a really cool feature about this, let me show you, is this is your factory cylinder head. And it just bolts right up on the bike. You can see your combustion chamber here. The really cool thing about the Fathead is you can change your combustion chamber. So this is what's actually inside the head there. So you press this out, it's held in there by an O-ring. You can change compression ratio, you can change your squish area, and tune it pretty well for anything, any way you want your bike to run. I also have the Electron carburetor. Really neat thing about the Electron carbs is they're jetless, so you don't have main jet, pilot jet, anything like that. It's tuned by a metering rod that's in here. There are different metering rods that you can get, and the way they're tuned is by the taper of the metering rod itself. And to tune them, you take the top of it off. There's an adjustment tool that goes in, so you screw the metering rod in or out, and that's how you tune the bike. On the back side of it in there, I don't know if you can really see it, but there is a adjustment screw, and it's for your power jet. And your power jet is for once the slide gets up to a certain opening, it will actually open up and the vacuum will start pulling fuel through that power jet. It's kind of like, it acts sort of like your main jet, but it's actually tunable on the fly. You can stop, pull up, you can adjust it whenever you need. And it pulls fuel direct from the bottom of the float bowl itself, so you're never going to run out of fuel unless you run out of fuel in the bike. I'm running Dunlop AT81 tires on this bike. They are more of a off-road enduro type tire, but they've worked really well for me. I primarily ride moto, but they work really well in hard pack, slick conditions, deep loam, mud. They work really well for that. It's just a good all-around tire. I have a few other little dress-up parts on the bike. Lightspeed carbon front brake line holder. It's carbon fiber, and it's really just a dress-up part. It has no performance feature other than lightweight. Lightspeed carbon chain guide. It's carbon fiber there, as well as a Lightspeed carbon rear brake caliper cover. I'm running VP T2 fuel in this bike. The T2 is 105 octane. It's oxygenated and it's leaded, and it's also mixed 40-1. So you buy the fuel, you pour it straight into the bike. There's no mixing. There's no trying to get your buying pump gas, buying race gas, mixing them together, then pre-mixing it. So now you've got 10 gallons of fuel sitting around. It's worked really well on this bike, and I know several other guys that are using the T2 now, and it works fine for stock 2-strokes, modified 2-strokes. It's just a really good fuel, and you can get it right here at I-69. The rear shock, I took it apart and went through it, everything inside it, just like the forks. I rebuilt with Technical Touch parts. It's a KYB company that's based here in the U.S. out of Ontario, California. Racetech Gold valves as well in the rear shock for valving, and also Racetech springs, again sprung for my weight. The only other really cool feature about this bike is my radiator cap. So I found one of these. I just saw a picture of one and found it through one of our distributors here at I-69. And it's just really neat to be able to look down and make sure that the bike's not overheating. I am running engine ice in the bike as well. Instead of regular 50-50 coolant, the engine ice brought the temperature down roughly 20-25 degrees or so from normal operating temperature. So I've never seen the bike get over about 160 degrees or so, even on a hot day. It runs really cool. It hasn't overheated on me. So let's dive into the engine on this bike. So the engine, right after I purchased the bike, I rode it for several months, and my plan was actually to try and blow this engine up. Just ride it until it goes, and it finally did. When it let go, the backside of the piston skirt broke off. It scarred the cylinder pretty good. Sent my cylinder to MMR Racing. He was a local guy here. He ported the cylinder for me. He did a fantastic job on it. Then sent the cylinder and my new piston to US Chrome. They're a company based out of Wisconsin. So what they did is they took the cylinder, they welded it up, they bore it back out, they hone it, and then they re-Nicosil it. And Nicosil is a coating that goes inside your cylinder. It just makes your cylinder a little bit more resilient to wear. Then got the cylinder back. I ordered a Wrench Rabbit. It's engine in a box kit. So everything from Wrench Rabbit in that box that you need to rebuild an engine completely. So it has every bearing, every seal, every gasket, the crankshaft, the piston, everything. So it's pretty much an engine in a box. The only thing that has not been replaced inside this engine is the transmission gears and shafts themselves. So everything on it's new. Let's see, what else did I do to it? I can't think of anything else.